Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Vale Glamorgan Council's Cabinet meeting of today, the 12th of March 2026. I'm Councillor Liz Burnett and Chair of the meeting as the leader of the Vale Glamorgan Council Cabinet and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources. We're again using the Council's hybrid platform today, so we've got the usual reminders that the meeting is being live streamed and also recorded, and it will be uploaded to the website as soon as practicable after the meeting. Anyone in the chamber should ensure their microphone's not activated, and remote attendees should mute themselves when not speaking so we don't get any background noise. To speak, if you're online, put your hand up on the raise hand function and we'll call you in. And if you're in the chamber, you can just raise your hand as you normally would. We're obviously not using the chat function. That's purely to highlight any technical issues or whatever. So with that housekeeping complete, I can move on to the agenda main. And the first agenda item is apologies for absence. I've got an apology for absence from Councillor Perks. I'm not aware, I think everyone else is present. So yes, it's just Councillor Perks, thank you. Then agenda item 2 is minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of February 2026. And can I move those as a true record?
And I'm happy to second it.
Thank you. And I can't see anybody saying no, they weren't, so that's agreed. Thank you. Then any declarations of interest? I haven't been made aware of any.
No, there were no declarations of interest for this particular meeting. Thank you.
Super. And I haven't got anybody indicating on here, so that's fine as well. We can move on to the references that are on the agenda. The first one is from Place Scrutiny Committee on the 20th of January, and that's in relation to the Project Zero update report. This is a report that was went up to September of last year. It went from April 2025 to September 2025. So there will be another one coming through shortly, the next 6-month report. There was quite an involved discussion in some of the areas, and this is also discussed in the Public Service Board, which I chair. So there has been a lot of discussion with our public sector partners. The one thing I think that there's always a lot of conversation about is if you look at paragraph 2.4 in the main report, where it talks about where our activity is, and the sort of from a perspective of zero carbon return, most of our carbon usage is related to our supply chain. And so it's essential that we work with those partners to see how we reduce that. I know that within some of our larger projects, we do have measures in terms, in the community benefit side, we do have measures to do with carbon reduction. So we will take that forward. So I think that for this, because there'll be another one due shortly, that we can note the report and look forward to the forthcoming one, which I assume should be with us within the next month or so. Thank you. So happy to move that we note.
I was happy to second, but I was also going to make a point, Leader. I'm very pleased to announce that the soft plastics will be rolled out not just to people in Penarth who already got them in and Eastern Vale, but also the rest of Vale Glamorgan from early April onwards. And they should be getting communication out very shortly.
That is really super news. I think it's been one of those schemes that when it was launched in Penarth, it was so incredibly popular that we were getting a lot of contact and online comments saying, well, when can we have it? So it's really, really good news that that's coming. And you know, from a personal perspective, that's made the massive difference that you know, I don't my household doesn't put out more than one black bag in 3 weeks now, and an awful lot of that comes down to soft plastics, I think. So so yeah, that's
Oh, definitely.
really, really positive. So you've seconded, and
I'm happy to second that.
that's great. And I can't see anybody else commenting, so that's agreed. Then we go on to agenda item 5, and that is another reference from Place Scrutiny Committee on the 20th of July, and that's a petition. It related to the petition to declare a local nature reserve at Barry's Old Harbour, and there was a comprehensive discussion at the scrutiny on this, and there were discussions about the fact that there is a potential for it to become a local nature reserve, but there's also the issues of priority, that there are other areas in the Vale that also could quite easily be designated, and there's also the capacity and things like that as well. So I think that overall there is a positive view on this, but the recommendations that came through to us from the scrutiny committee was that they said that the committee agrees in principle that an LNR be declared at the Old Harbour site at Barry. They also said that additional work would be required to identify the resource requirements, etc. They said that the Vale should work with relevant groups and partners to ensure that work would be undertaken to identify and address any immediate risk to wildlife at the Old Harbour site. And then they also talked about Dŵr Cymru and Natural Resources Wales being invited to attend their committee. Well, I think the fourth one is for the committee itself. They can invite their own guests. But I think that the first 3 recommendations actually demonstrate that there are a huge range of factors that would influence the designation of the Old Harbour site as an LNR. And so I think that it is for us to ask for a more comprehensive report on what would be required to designate an LNR at the Old Harbour, and the competing factors, special consideration, some of the stuff that the scrutiny committee has actually raised. So I think that what we can do is we can note committee's comments and ask for a more complete report to Cabinet in order to take an informed decision as we move forward. And I'm happy to move. Mark, I can see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, and I'm happy to second that, and I think that is vital. We had a very good discussion at the Place Scrutiny meeting, and it is quite a complex thing to do, and I think we do need a very thorough and detailed report at an appropriate time in the future.
Super. So again, I can't see anyone indicating that they wish to speak, so that's agreed. Then we go on to my report on this agenda. Well, my first official report, which is the marketing of land at Nell's Point, Barry Island, and I think this is an interesting development. And I think it's fair to say that the council has been seeking the development of a hotel on Barry Island certainly for as long as I've been in Cabinet. And I think it was about 2017, we nearly managed it, but there was an issue over funding, and since then we have continued to have those conversations. So in more recent times, there has been development at the former Grade 2 listed toilet block in adjacent to Nell's Point, which was subject of a separate bidding process back in 2019. And it's currently under development with a new bar restaurant due to open. And the report says in the summer, but I actually went to have a look the other day, and we're talking about late May, hopefully. So hopefully it'll be before then. And the reason this report has come forward is that the developer of the project has expressed an interest in further developments at Nell's Point, including a new 30-bedroom hotel and a restaurant of up to 350 square metres. Now, people can express interest to us, but actually there is a due process to go through, and the due process is to undertake a marketing exercise, because there could be other people who would want to do that, and it's only fair that they have an opportunity to come forward. It also it means that any person has to lay out their proposal in terms of costs, but also, more importantly, from our perspective, quality, and the quality of any proposal going forward. So that is what we are proposing to undertake. We've always talked about uses such as hospitality, leisure, tourism, that sort of thing, and we're not moving away from that. The area of land that is identified for possible development is two small parcels, edged in red on the plan attached at Appendix A. And as I said, it's the proposals indicate the possible development of an up to 40-bed hotel on the parcel numbered 1 on the plan attached, and the separate restaurant on the parcel numbered 2 on the plan that's attached. That would would have minimal impact on parking and would leave the main parking areas unaffected. As we do with all sites, and I suppose it's fair to say that quite often when we are working in partnership with developers, we will help them to access loans, and we will make sure that they have introductions to various funding streams. So as far as we can do, we will hopefully support people to develop a sustainable and successful outcome. So as a paragraph 2.5 is the paragraph that talks about the fact that it will not affect car parking. Any discussion of that would be later on, because although the car parking at Nell's Point is what's termed sort of medium-term use, in that, should a better offer come up, we always have to ensure that there is car parking available. So I think in effect it's as simple as that. And if I go to the recommendations to say what we will be doing next, actually I can see that Councillor John's got his hand up. Do you want to come in before or after recommendations?
I just wanted to mention, Leader, that I was very supportive of the previous interest shown in 2015. And this is good news, because Barry Island does need a hotel, and there's lots of things going for Barry Island at the moment. And I really think that if this does progress, it'll be good news. And I very much welcome it. Thank you.
Thanks, Gwyn. I think it's a very valid comment, and but I think also we are fortunate in Barry. If you actually look at the developments that have happened, when the former toilet block is opened as a restaurant later in the year, the attention to detail in that is absolutely superb. But similarly, if we look at historic developments, if you look at the hydraulic pump house development, if we look at the goods sheds development, these are developments that have brought forward really, really positive outcomes for the town, but have kept their eye on the history of those premises. And so we've ended up with things that are very authentic and add to the town. And I think that's what we would be seeking to do here as well. I was just going to go on to recommendations. I can see that Mark's got his hand up as well. Do you want to come in now, Mark, or after recommendations?
Yeah, I'm happy to come in. I think you made a really good point, Leader, in the sense that these developments, you mentioned, about the Good Shed development, that has really acted as a catalyst for further development. And I think it's helping putting Barratt on the map in a really positive way. And really, when we get big chains like the loungers moving to Barratt, we know that we're very much up and coming, and that's going to be the second lounger within the Vale Glamorgan. There may be more, who knows? But clearly, when you get a national chain that offers a really good product, it will bound to mean more and more people will be visiting the island, and that's going to be excellent news for them and other traders as well. And I think that is really something welcomed. And we've still got very good parking facilities and really good car parks that people can visit the sites. And clearly, I think Barratt is very much open for tourists and very much open for locals as well. So I think this superb development that we will need. And I'm really happy to second it when we get to the part where you move it to first.
Well, I'll come back to that because I'm not sure you can second first. But I shall go to recommendations and then I'll come back to you. Thanks, Mark. So the recommendations for us today are the authority is granted to market the 2 areas of land adjoining the former public conveniences identified at Appendix A, located at Nell's Point, Barry Island, for hotel and restaurant use. 2, that delegated authority is granted to the Director of Place in consultation with the Director of Environment and Housing, Monitoring Officer / Head of Legal and Democratic Services, Head of Finance / 151 Officer, Head of Corporate Landlord, Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Sustainable Places, and the Barry Place Board to advertise the sites and the boundaries of which are shown on Appendix A on the basis of a marketing plan setting out the specific uses as described in this report and the methodology under which any bids for the building will be assessed, and to dispose of the property to the bidder who best meets the requirements of the council on terms and conditions to be agreed. But as I've already said, that is very much a quality as well as a cost basis. Thirdly, that Cabinet authorises delegated authority to the Monitoring Officer, Head of Legal and Democratic Services, to draft and execute all necessary contracts and other legal agreements required in respect of the disposal. And finally, to work with any successful bidder to secure loan funding to support the development via a relevant funder such as the Cardiff Capital Region Sites and Premises Fund, the Development Bank for Wales, or other suitable investment funds, subject to appropriate legal requirements and suitable business case, with a requirement that this funding will be paid back over an appropriate period and that an appropriate rate of interest is payable on any loan having regard to the relevant subsidy control requirements. And I'm delighted to move. I hope that we find a successful developer for this. And Mark, you've come back in.
And I'm happy to second that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. And I cannot see any other hands up, so that is approved. So we can move on now. This is to another exciting report, and the report of the Cabinet Member for Education, Arts and the Welsh Language, and it's an update on Sustainable Communities for Learning programme, proposed use of the former Homeview Leisure Centre, Barry. So over to you, Rhiannon.
Thank you. Yes, it is indeed good news, because we will be seeking to benefit a number of services. This isn't just about education. This is going to be a benefit to several departments in the council. So looking at the building overall, a condition survey completed in February 24 reported that Holm Leisure Centre to be structurally sound, but with substantial issues requiring investment, particularly the roof, windows, external doors and internal fire doors. Water ingress and deterioration have increased since the survey was completed. Not surprising, really, bearing in mind the weather we've been having. So the Holm Leisure Centre is located in Gibbonsdown, which is the most deprived area in the Vale of Glamorgan. Residents experience considerable challenges, including in-work poverty, health inequalities, transport barriers, and limited youth services. Ysgolderry is facing a critical capacity shortage. Temporary accommodation has been required since 2021 and costs almost £40,000 a month, with projected total expenditure of £1.8 million by September of this year. Home View has been assessed as offering sufficient space for at least 8 classrooms, plus ancillary spaces, with potential for enhanced decarbonisation features such as increase the external envelope insulation, replace single glazed windows, PV panels, air source heat pumps, and ecological spaces to encourage biodiversity to thrive. Officers have met to consider all available options for the site. I mean, it's been under discussion for some time, and the opportunity to provide educational use by way of an anchor use has considerable merit. Not only would it bring a redundant building back into effective use, it would also ease financial challenges and outlined above in relation to the costs of providing ALN provision. With the right approach, it would also enable significant community benefit. So the idea is the proposed scheme could be delivered over 2 phases. First of all, the ALN anchor occupier, building change of use and refurbishment. So the cost of this to undertake the required adaptations and sustainability upgrades is estimated at £5 million. A more accurate project budget proposal will be provided after the completion of all surveys and the feasibility study, which will be undertaken if and when, as I hope, Cabinet approval is granted. The funding proposal for this phase of works will be to seek Welsh Government match funding available through the Sustainable Communities for Learning programme. The intervention rate for an ALN provision is 75% Welsh Government and 25% contribution from us, which would mean the council contribution would stand at around £1.125 million. Learning and Skills currently incurs approximately £2 million per year costs for out-of-county ALN placements. So you can see it would make economic sense to be using a building that we already own for this provision. There is also the potential to reduce or fully phase out the need for temporary classroom leases beyond 2026, including the removal of 3 temporary buildings currently located on the Ysgolderry site. It is estimated the refurb programme could enable occupation by September next year if survey works commenced in late March 26 within the next couple of weeks. Community hub development is phase 2. This need is both significant and well evidenced, characterised by high levels of unemployment, limited access to health services, and residents' anxiety associated with travelling beyond the local neighbourhood. Further compounded by a notably young population, over 25% of residents on Gibbonsdown are under the age of 18, and a lack of youth provision, which contributes to increased levels of antisocial behaviour. And I'd like to tie that in with the budgets that we passed on Monday, which is going to be spending more money on enhanced youth provision across the Vale. And one of the points I made when we discussed that was the importance of providing young people with something to do that is outside the remit of schools, and is something that the police, when we've talked to them, have emphasised over and over again, the importance of youth services in giving young people a structure and something to do and aspirations to be offered to them outside the remit of school and the home. Because that is, for some children, that is an absolute lifesaver. Numerous possibilities for community use within phase 2. This could include dedicated youth provision, activity spaces for sport, play and other activity, health outreach services, such as wellbeing clinics, subject to further engagement with Cardiff and the Vale Health Board and other partners, adult learning programmes and employment support activities, a community cafe or similar social enterprise facilities, flexible multi-use rooms for partner agencies and community groups, and the potential for other support services aligned to the specific needs of the community. It is proposed that some of these activities and uses could take place alongside the educational use of the main building, representing a dual use of facilities, and could also be developed as Phase 2 expands to include the current community workshops at the site. There is also an opportunity to consider income-producing partnerships with support services. So, a dual operational model is proposed for the development of Homeview to ensure both effective governance and efficient use of the site. The council as landlord could retain overall responsibility for managing the asset, ensuring ongoing maintenance, compliance and access across the facility, albeit in partnership with educational use and other community groups and partners who would want to develop and sustain activity at the site. Community facilities and the use of the building and any space developed as part of Phase 2 could then be coordinated at a corporate landlord level with project management support initially, reducing the admin burden on education staff and maximising the utilisation of facilities for the wider community. Such an approach would represent a new way of developing service model within the council, a new way of working, and would serve as an excellent test or pilot approach. The success of the approach can be gauged and can be rolled out to other similar developments in future. In addition, it is proposed that Phase 2 is informed by a programme of community engagement that will help shape the design of that phase. In other words, another example of the council doing things with people rather than imposing our ideas on them, because people want to be done with, not done to. So the recommendations, please, that Cabinet approves in principle the redevelopment of Homeview to accommodate an additional learning needs educational facility as Phase 1 as a wider transformation programme. The Cabinet endorses the continued development of Phase 2 proposals to create new community-facing facilities within the remaining accommodation. The Cabinet authorises officers to progress a full RIBA Stage 2 feasibility design to submit a business case to Welsh Government under the Sustainable Communities for Learning programme. The Cabinet agrees that the facility can be managed under the corporate landlord model. The Cabinet receives a further report on the full feasibility outcomes, final costings and detailed Phase 2 proposals. And the Cabinet approves to increase the capital programme by 160,000, profiled 50,000 in 25-26 and 110,000 26-27 to be funded from the ALM reserve. I'd like to move those recommendations.
Thanks, Rhiannon. I can see that Eddie wants to come in and comment on this.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, what can I say? This report isn't trying to utilise a building and as it is. It's recognising that change needs to happen. We're proposing some, major changes with the use of the building, but I really like the fact that we've got this Phase 1 for the school, but also consideration of Phase 2. It will make a big impact on the local people within the area, and it's something which, without doubt, will people will look forward to. One of the aspects of this report, why is in Phase 2, I was thinking, why don't we do it all at once? Well, we're changing the way we look after the buildings and things. The landlord model will make a difference, and it just shows that the partnership is something that we just don't want to impose on everybody at the same time. Pilot, excellent. So I'm really happy to second the recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie. I think the whole Cabinet would be champing at the bit to second this report. It's been something that we've actually been working on for quite a while. We've known that there has to be something that is really quite special provided at Homeview. We know the needs of the communities. We know what the community have told us the needs are, and I think that through such an innovative approach, and for those who don't understand the corporate landlord model, it means we take all the onus of having to manage the building and do all the sort of servicing of boilers and that sort of thing away from the body that's occupying it. And in essence, it means that at the end of the school day, in evenings, weekends, holidays, that building is free for whatever use that needs to be made of it for the local community, which makes it much more cost effective for other organisations to get involved. It also means that if the school does not take up the whole building, which we don't envisage it will, there actually can be activities during the day. But if the school has specific facilities, etc., that are useful to the community, they can be used in the evenings and weekends. So I'm looking to be able to show local people around when we've got some ideas, etc., and hopefully also see the difference that this will make to the lives of our young people. I know that our officers and certainly our youth services are so enthusiastic about what we can deliver through this, and it will become hopefully a model for what we do in all our schools, because we are moving towards a corporate landlord model as schools want to engage, so that all our schools can become true community schools and they will be open to their communities out of school hours. You know, this is very much a part one, but I hope we'll have it underway soon. So this has been moved and seconded and has a very pleased and enthusiastic cabinet behind it. So no dissent whatsoever. Thank you all. We can then go on to another. We've got some good reports today, haven't we? The next one goes over to the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood and Building Services, and I'm sure this will be one of the much read reports. This is the Highway Maintenance 3-year plan for 2026 to 29. So that's over to Mark.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. And I'm delighted to present this report to Cabinet this afternoon. Clearly, you know, there's been an awful lot of work done by officers in constructing this. And first of all, can I thank them in constructing this report? The real detail on this report is, like in many other reports, is in the appendices. And if people want to look at the appendices, please do, because often you'll see many roads on there and there'll be a scoring matrix, which I will explain a bit later. And there are different ways of treating roads, as people will see on Appendix A1, Appendix A2, and Appendix A3. But not only do we resurface roads, we also surface footways as well. And what I'd like to mention here is that for next year in particular, we're doubling the amount of money we're going to be spending on footways, which I think is tremendous. And that will improve the accessibility of people moving around their different areas. And clearly, if you think there's a footway that is not on there that needs to be assessed, then please let us know. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go through certain reasons as to why we categorize and look at which roads we surface. So we look at certain considerations. First of all, we look at the classification of roads. And obviously, the bigger the road, the more priority we give it in terms of our score matrix. So obviously, like an A road, we would get a higher priority than a B road, or a C road, or an unclassified road. Obviously, we look at the visual condition, and we have scanners to have a look at the road as well, to see if it's bumpy or smooth or whatever, and to see if that scores highly. That would also reflect in our score matrix. We also look at traffic volume, because obviously a busy road will mean that more people be affected by it. So clearly that would also count. We also look at physical visual condition of the road. We also, engineers will assess it. We also look at public complaints. So if there's many public complaints, that will also add to the matrix. We also look at insurance claims. Obviously, we look at buses and school routes. That's very important as well. We're obviously looking at previous maintenance costs. So as, for example, has it had potholes, for example? Are there likely to be more potholes? So clearly we don't want that. So obviously that's going to be considered as a priority when looking at whether to resurface that particular road. And of course, other things are important. Is it part of an active travel or cycle route? And I think that is very important. And we've recently added that to the matrix. Now, the matrix is made up of those indicators, and that will give people, and if you look at the appendices, the last appendix on here, which is Appendix B, you get all the totals, and the total will work out a maximum of 380. Now, we're not expecting for every road to hit 380, and indeed, that would be pretty difficult to do. So the ones that we are really consider for it to be reinforced is any road that scores over 210. And obviously what we do is look at the ones with the highest scores and we prioritise those in terms of what we're going to do first. Now, obviously, if we know, for example, there is utility works happening, then obviously we will then look at that and make sure those works occur first, utility works first, and then we plan the works afterwards. So it won't necessarily be in that order, but normally it would be. So obviously the highest ones will more likely to prioritise the ones that are lower down. If you think a one doesn't hit 210, but you think should, then, you know, any member of the council or even a member of the public can write in and say, I'd like that to be reconsidered. And obviously our highways officers will then, we look at this and then we examine it and then say, yes, that is a possibility, or no, perhaps it doesn't hit the criteria. Obviously, we have resources very much linked to this. And if people want to have a look at this, if you go into the financial implications on table 1, which is on page 8 of the report, it tells you the financial commitments in terms of these capital works. So, for instance, in this financial year, 25-26, we're spending 4.7 million. And in 26-27, we're spending 3.8 million. Now, and in 2027-28, there's 2 million and so on and so forth. But that can obviously change. So these are indicative figures for future years. I would also like to emphasise that we've been given 4.5 million by Welsh Government over this year and next year, which is really, really helpful to enhance and improve our road surfacing and also to minimise our potholes as well. And I think that's important. I'd also like to add an important point here that so far this year, we have spent 1.9 million on revenue expenditure. And that's been mostly on things like repairing potholes and other areas of roads. And that doesn't include spending money on traffic lights. So, you know, that's quite a considerable amount of money, and that comes out of revenue. Remember, the 3-year surfacing programme is capital works, and I think that is really important. So clearly, we need to be thinking about this. Another consideration that we need to think about is obviously the fact is that one really important issue here, and it's very important to consider, is that we need to consider that although we got all these works which are going on, it's very important that we also think about future years as to what will happen. And clearly, we want more people to use other ways of walking around and other ways of connecting. So clearly, we're looking at public transport, we're looking at other ways of getting around. So clearly, I'm really delighted to present this. I know that Councillor John wants to come in. So do you want to come in now, Councillor John?
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Yes, I'm absolutely delighted with this report. It's so much information on here, but this is really attacking the problems that we have. And obviously, I'm delighted to see that Eagleswell Road of Lantford Major is on this report, because that's given me, as a local member, a great deal of problem over a long time. So great news. And I think we've all got to be patient, because it's all down to the weather as well. You can't go resurfacing roads in the pouring rain. So, and that is a big problem in the winter, because people don't realise that we just can't do this work in the bad weather. But given a little bit of luck in the springtime now, we can get on and do a great job. And thank you, Mark, for the really work you've done in working with the officers to get this report to us today. Excellent. Thank you. And I quite happy to second your nomination when that comes round. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gwyn. I think you made an excellent point, is that, you know, some people don't appreciate that we can't do resurfacing at this time of the year because obviously the temperature is not quite right. It's too cold and it's often too wet, as we know, and therefore it's very difficult to do these kind of works as well. And also I'd like to emphasize the different kind of treatments that we have. We also got a new treatment which we've been successfully piloting, and that's been very, very successful in our piloting, and we extended it more, and that's called ultra-thin, and we are piloting more areas, mostly around Dinas Palace and some areas of Penarth, but we hope to do more. It's been really successful, and I attended the pilot recently in Gibbons down in Barry last year, and it's gone really well so far. And, you know, we're doing more and more of that. What we're not doing anymore is mycorrhizal surfacing, but we are doing some surface dressing, and that's largely with a preventative measure. But mostly, you know, we do an awful lot of tarmacking, and I think that is a really good process as well. That is seen by many as the gold standard. But nevertheless, I'm going to move now to the recommendations. The first one is that the Cabinet considers the content of revised highways maintenance 3-year servicing plan 26-29 as attached at appendices A1, A2, A3, and A4, and agrees proposal locations for work in principle. And I would like to emphasize is very much in principle. This is not done and dusted. This can change, obviously, because of weather, because of other factors. Secondly, the Department of Environment and Housing be granted dedicated authority to amend the plans in consultation the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood and Building Services, which is myself, if urgent highway services are identified. So obviously there always is a degree of flexibility in this. And number 3, that Cabinet considers and agrees in principle the methodology that where a location is listed on the plan, only partial areas may be completed to ensure the best use and allocation of budget. What I'm also saying here that sometimes when the road is on here, we don't necessarily do the whole of the road. And that's an important point to emphasize because there may be parts of the road which are in very good condition. And there's no point wasting money where we could use that money elsewhere to do other roads. And I know our officers are very keen to do that. And that explains why some roads, for instance, are not all done. The bits that are needed are very much done. And number 4, that the report and supporting appendix be referred to the Place Scrutiny Committee for consideration. And I know that's coming up very, very soon, and I hope to attend that. And number 5, that subject to no recommendation that affect the plan as proposed being received from scrutiny committees, the Highway 3-year plan 26-29 be agreed, and I so move. So I'm looking for someone to second that.
And I'd like to second that.
Thank you very much, Councillor John. I think we needed that coming as well.
No, I will just round it up. Councillor John had already said that he was going to second, so he made sure he did it at the right place. That's great. And this is going to go to scrutiny, isn't it? So it's part of the recommendations, and I think that's going to be really important to have a full conversation there because it's actually such a complex area, isn't it? And we all become completely fixated with road resurfacing and potholes, don't we? Particularly at this time of the year. So I think that'll be really, really good, and there should be a very good discussion on that. So anyone who's interested in road resurfacing and that sort of thing, I would advise to watch scrutiny, or if you really want to register to speak and ask questions. That would be good.
Absolutely, and I would welcome that as well. And I know that the chair, Councillor Lord Soberby, will also welcome that as well.
Super. So again, that's been moved and seconded. I can't see anybody else wanting to come in, so that's agreed, Mark.
Thank you.
And we can go on to your next report, which relates to Ogmore Surf Life. I was going to do lots of words. Ogmore Surf Life Saving Club. It's the renewal of the lease. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And this report It's basically about the idea of trying to increase the lease from 15 years up to 25 years. And the reason why they want to increase the lease is that it allows them to borrow money and to raise money through grants, for example, in order to enhance and improve the building. Now, that's really important because by improving the building, they can also reduce their electricity bills, and that will mean there'll be more money provided for what they do. And what I like to tell people is, in fact, they do fantastic work in life saving, and they train not just older people, but youngsters, even as young as what they call nippers, okay, which I love that term, and children and young people and adults on the skills of life saving. And life saving is a clearly vital skill, along with obviously swimming as well. And I think we all want to encourage that, don't we? Especially people that live in those kind of communities. Those people do fantastic work, and they also complement the work of the Royal RNR. And I'm very lucky that I live in Penarth, and we have the lifeboat people there, and they do fantastic work. And remember the important point that these people are amazing. They're so amazing because they're volunteers as well. A lot of them have got full-time jobs, they've got family lives, and they still, at a drop of a hat, will go and rescue people. And, you know, these people save lives day in, day out. They do a fantastic job. So I know that Councillor John wants to come in. So do you want to come in now, Councillor John?
Thank you very much, Mark. I'm absolutely delighted to support this once again. It's my good day today because I have had dealings with this club many years ago when I was a cabinet member. That I went down and visited the club, and it's such a hard-working, energetic club, and I thoroughly support them. Yes, you can only get grants if you've got a 25-year lease, and buildings need refurbishment, and they're not waiting for it to happen. They're coming to us and saying what they intend doing, which is good news for them and the community they serve. Because let's be fair about it, life saving on our shores is so important. So I'm fully supportive and happy to second. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I will now come to the recommendations, Councillor John, and thank you very much for that support. The first recommendation, that Cabinet considers granting delegated authority to the Director of Environment and Housing in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood and Building Services and the Head of Financial Services, Section 1500 officer, to facilitate with the Council's landlords to an increase in the subletting period when the existing lease from 15 to 25 years, as I explained earlier, and issue Penarth Surf Life Saving Club a new 25-year lease, okay? And they are based in Ogmore by sea, which is why it's in Glamorgan, and to enable future grant applications to be explored. And number two, that the monitoring officer, Head of Legal Services and Democratic Services, be authorised to prepare and complete and execute the required legal documentation to allow for a 25-year lease to be issued to the Surf Life Saving Club. And I so move. And I'm looking for a seconder.
And I will second. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think the leader's here as well.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that I note that it's been moved and seconded, and I've also looked around to see that there's no dissent. So no, that's agreed. I think it's really good, and I think it's worth noting that that's how we often work with our partner organisations. That quite often our partner organisations can access funding that we can't, but we need to make sure that things are organised in such a way that it enables them to apply for funding and to be self-directing. And we've done a lot of work like that in the past with organisations throughout the Vale, and I think it's a very constructive way to work. So my thanks to them for being so proactive, and hope that this can move ahead now. So thanks, Mark, and thanks everyone else. But you don't escape so easily because you have a third report today.
I do.
And that's agenda item 10, and that is the grass cutting contract for 2026 to 29. So back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can I also say this is another very positive report as well. And I'm delighted. A lot of the detail will be on the part 2, but the part 1 is basically about the grass cutting contract for 26-29. We're an offer to extend another 12 months. Now, as you know, in the Vale Glamorgan, we do have lots of hedges, areas around highways, grass areas that need cutting. But we'd like to emphasise we don't cut everywhere. There are areas where perhaps we allow nature to take its course, allow wildflowers, allow pollinators, and I think that's important, bearing in mind climate change as well. So we try to have a balanced approach. Obviously, we look at areas of road safety, and I think that's very important. So obviously, when areas like roundabouts and areas by roads need cutting, then we obviously require that to happen. But we do look at it in a commonsensical approach. We all do look at the climate consideration. So, but the most detail, I will then move to the part 2. So I allow the Cabinet to consider the part 1, part 2 information, that the contents report be noted. And that's on pages 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and be considered in connection with part 2 report later in the agenda. And I so move. So I'm looking for a seconder.
Thanks.
I'd second.
Thank you.
He beat me to it. There we are. So it's moved by Mark,
Sorry, leader.
seconded by Gwyn, and I'll just be the glamorous assistant. So thank you all, and no dissent. So that's agreed. We will then move on to agenda item 11. This is actually the report of the Cabinet Member for Public Sector Housing and Tenant Engagement. And it's really sad that actually she's not able to attend today, because this is a report that she is really, I think excited is an apt word about, because it's something that's been discussed for so long, and so really, really positive that this is in relation to the council being appointed as the affordable housing partner for the Upper Cosmeston farm development. And so I think as most people in the Eastern Vale would be aware, the Upper Cosmeston site will deliver 576 new homes, of which 50% will be affordable. And as a Penarth councillor, I know that it has been a very contentious scheme, but in all honesty, when the majority of people talk to me in my ward, and they ask whether the development is going forward, and you normally brace yourself and think, what's going to be the problem? But normally people are asking because their children can't find anywhere to live, or they need to downsize, or somebody needs a house. And because we have very little in the way of affordable housing available in the Eastern Vale, this development represents hope for the future for a lot of people. So it is hugely important. And the scheme, the 50% will be made up of 219 homes for social rent that will be pepper potted, spread throughout the development, and 69 homes for low-cost homes ownership. So those are low cost to buy, sometimes shared equity, that sort of thing. The scheme also includes a new primary school, community facilities, public open space, and an active travel route forming a sustainable community near Penarth and Cosmeston Lakes, as we know. And I meant to say earlier when we were talking about active travel also includes the use of mobility scooters. It's not just people in lycra and bikes and things like that and running shoes. It's actually people getting about their normal daily life without the use of a car. So active travel for this would include that as well. So if you look in terms of need, back in March 2025, there were more than 7,200 households on the council's waiting list, and you can't say that every one of those was homeless. I mean, that wouldn't be accurate, but that's a lot of people that are living in inappropriate housing. Maybe their house has got too big, their house is too small, and their family's grown. Maybe it's people whose families have moved out and they want to downsize into somewhere appropriate. So there is demand. Appendix A gives you the sort of illustrative master plan to look at how the site's been designed, and it's actually a very green site, very accessible site, and it reflects the fact it's across the road from a country park and hoping to build on that. The Welsh Government approved the sale and disposal for the site in November 23 and set out a requirement of 50% affordable housing. And I don't think it's any secret that this council actually wanted to be the developer for that, but that wasn't to be. Back in October last year, the Welsh Government confirmed it had a contract with Barratt Redrow, and then following on from that, in 22nd of October, Barratt Redrow formally approached the council in relation to becoming their Section 106 affordable housing partner. An in principle agreement was laid down in 16th of December. The Council Strategic Housing Board met and discussed the offer. And we could have said, oh well, we'll just do a third, or we do a half, or whatever. But our view was that in doing this, we are able to do policy checks on the homes that local people are moving into, as the lowest cost in terms of rental housing, social housing provider in the Vale. It would mean it was more cost effective for the people to move in, but also because we're responsible for 50% of those homes, we can make sure that we can follow up on the quality, and we would ensure that those properties are built to full Welsh housing quality standards. So this is moving forward, and it comes to Cabinet today for approval, so that we can go forward and actually agree the formal arrangement with Barratt Redrow, and we can then start to move forward more, I suppose, more quickly in the future. So it's a fairly simple report to take that next step into partnership with Barratt Redrow, and there's just 3 recommendations for us today, and that is that Cabinet agrees that the Vale of Glamorgan Council acts as the affordable housing partner to Barratt Redrow for the Upper Cosmeston Farm development. Secondly, that Cabinet delegates authority to the Head of Housing and Building Services in consultation with the Cabinet Member for Public Sector Housing and Tenant Engagement, and Head of Finance Section 151 Officer to negotiate the heads of terms and all necessary financial transfer, partnership and legal agreements with Barratt Redrow. And finally, on successfully concluding recommendation 2, that Cabinet delegates authority to the monitoring officer, head of legal and democratic services to enter into the required contractual and statutory agreements with Barratt Redrow. And I would so move, and I can see that there's a bit of a fight to second, but that Councillor Wilson is first on the list. So over to you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. I would happy to second that. And I'd also like to make one or two comments as well. First of all, this is a fantastic report in the sense that you and I, Liz, share the same ward, Stanwell ward, and we get many people wanting to be rehoused or wanting housing. And clearly this will offer a lot of people that solution with this development. Obviously, that will take time, but the expectations will obviously be high. We both get people that are clearly in lots of need and looking for that kind of housing. It's also a great location as well, because not only is it very accessible in terms of being near Cardiff and other areas, but also we have opportunities for active travel, as you mentioned. We also have a bus route through that area, as you know, and clearly things can only improve in terms of the infrastructure. Obviously, with any development, there will be perhaps 106 money opportunities to further enhance things, but that will be for another day, as we all know. But clearly, I'm delighted. I'm also delighted by the eco-credentials of this development as well. I know that students and academics from Cardiff University will also be monitoring this, and we know we'll be using different types of heat source pumps on this, and solar and other forms of technology. And I think that shows that we're going to be sector leading on this, like we are in many other areas. And clearly, I'm very delighted to second this report.
Thanks, Mark. And Gwyn, did you want to come in as well?
Yes, I just say this is a wonderful report. I'm absolutely delighted to see this report. I might be the Cabinet Member for Leisure Services, but I've been dealing with a number of people looking for a home for a long time, and the impact of not having anywhere to live, its incredible effect on their mental health. I've had people crying about not being successful in having a home when they bid for the homes. And quite honestly, I cannot emphasize enough that I only wish this was happening 20 years ago and we wouldn't be having the housing crisis that we're in today. And to see that these homes are going up and we will at least get 269 off our council list. And the more we can help people, the better. And you've got to really appreciate, I think, when you see this, I feel really tremendous about it for the simple reason that, as I mentioned, this lady's been crying her eyes out, not having anywhere to go, and this is fantastic. So I'm really supportive of this application for approval today. Thank you.
Thanks, Gwyn. I mean, Cabinet members would be aware that just before the Cabinet meeting, I hosted a visit by the Irish Minister, who's an Irish Secretary of State for Health with special responsibility for housing and older people. And that's Kieran O'Donnell MP. And we had a long and involved discussion about a lot of these issues, about how do you provide the types of homes that people need going forward, and how we have people living in homes that probably don't suit their needs now as they're getting older, but you know, why should they move unless they've got something that is far more suitable and better for them? And I mean, that's why we build homes for life, but it's why we have homes that have PowerPoints at the bottom of the stairs in case you ever need a stair lift, why they have wet rooms downstairs, so that, you know, if you do have sort of access needs, etc., that we can do that as well. And it's why it's so important to us to ensure as we move forward we have low carbon homes that are efficient to heat, that they are accessible, that if whatever life throws at you, there will be a way for you to stay in that property. That is really, really important for us. So I know that the Welsh Government Cabinet Secretary had suggested that he pop over to visit us because of what we've been doing in some of our housing developments. So really, really good news. So I can see, as I said, Mark, I moved it, Mark seconded it, and Gwyn was the supporter, and everybody else is happy. So another excellent report that has been agreed. Thank you all. So that's our final item on the part 1 agenda. But unusually, because we try to avoid part 2 items, don't we? We try to do everything under part 1. But we do have an item for discussion on today's agenda under part 2. That's agenda item 13. These are matters that are considered to be confidential, quite often commercially confidential. And therefore the meeting will need to move into private session where such matters can be discussed. At this point, I need to ask Cabinet to agree to move part 2. If somebody would like to move and somebody second, that would be useful.
I'm happy to move part 2.
And I can see, Eddie, you've got your hand up.
Happy to second.
Thanks, Eddie. And so we can ask the Cabinet Officer to stop the recording of this open session to ensure that no members of the public are present. And then we will continue on that basis. Following the meeting, the outcome of the part 2 discussions will be formally captured as part of the minutes of the meeting, and will advise all parties of the final decisions of the Cabinet for the relevant items. So it having been moved and seconded, if the Democratic Services Officer could confirm the live stream and recording have been stopped, please.